Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. So there was more nonsense that came out of the San Diego Comic-Con Rings of Prime events. Apparently, Sophia Nomvete thinks her own ancestors are inferior. I have an article on the screen. I'm not going to read the whole article. I'll have the link below. The article refers to comments she made during the fan quest Q&A sessions. Okay, I'll probably eventually maybe do one by ones on those. I think like 6 of them, just see what my response to what they say. But we'll see. So here's another basically, we're seeing another person from a minority ethnic group in her new home nation who has been brainwashed into thinking that her own ethnic culture is inferior, and she should gain validation by subverting another ethnicity's culture rather than celebrate her own and her culture of the country she went to, and the culture that's kind of bring them all together to make a bigger thing. So let's see what Miss Nomvete is. Okay, should have had this prepped. I do have the image. Give me 1 second, people. Not everything works out instantly. It's been a stressful day. Here we go. So, Miss Nomvete, according to her Instagram page, which I'll try to make it bigger, there we go, is she's a South African Iranian. Okay? Now, before I get specifically into her comments and whatnot, I want to say something in general. Okay? On actors of different ethnic origins playing characters of differing from them ethnic natures, so to speak. I have no real problem with actors who have one ethnic origin playing a character of another, so long as when you go into it and you know ahead of time the showrunner say, or the movie the director, whatever, says we're casting the best performer for the role, but the character itself is not being changed from its native, its depiction, its original lore-based depiction. So and they publicize that, right? I think most people are okay with that. And what I mean is something like, hypothetically, when they were casting Aragorn and Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, if the best guy to play him had been a Filipino guy, or maybe he had been a Serbian actor, or even a Nigerian actor, for example, and they went and saying we're not changing Aragorn from being Numenorian, from being of Germanic, Northwestern European, West European descent and all that. We're just having the best actor play him to convey the best acting skills, because it's fantasy, not reality. Okay, I think in general, if that's all people were doing, most people are okay with that. Okay, that may be a controversial position to some. They may say I'm agreeing with the wokeistas, but fundamentally, if we can watch Irish people play Italian mobsters and so forth, and no one has a problem with that, and I don't certainly. You should have a problem with say a black guy playing Aragorn, as long as Aragorn is still Numenorian, Northwest European Aragorn, who is understood, where we have a depiction of him, not the lore character. Okay. So if you respect the lore and keep the nature of the character compliant with the lore, then having the best actor is fine with me. Here's some examples. John Rhys-Davies played Gimli. John Rhys-Davies is Welsh. That's a type of Celt. Not an Anglo-Saxon or Germanic in any way. Gimli is a Germanic and Anglo-Saxon / Germanic in origin character. Same thing with Billy Boyd, who's Scottish, another Celtic ancestry, playing another Anglo-Saxon character, Pippin. Lawrence McCory, who played Lurch the Orc. He's a New Zealand Maori. Yeah, he was awesome as Lurch, who was basically an elf, an orc, which are corrupted elves, and therefore of the similar Germanic / Scandinavian origin that the elves are. Now, Mrs. Nomvete is, from all indications, just the type of actress you want to play a critical role in a movie. Okay, according to all reports, she's an excellent stage actress who's done a lot of good classical work. So, and in stage, you will have actors playing all the time differing ethnicities from their own, and no one has any problem with it because it's a fantastical depiction. Okay, but this video essay episode I'm doing is not about the violations of lore where the character she's playing, Disa, doesn't exist in the lore. Okay, not about that. nor about the viability of creating a character like her who probably would have existed at that time. I'm sure during the third and during the fourth, both had wives who were female since they both had sons. Okay, that's not what this is about. Nor is this about how female dwarfs should be depicted in Tolkien's lore. Okay, not about that. This is about cultural Marxism, a guiding force of the liberal left, and its inexorable drive to subvert and deconstruct existing cultural and social norms, while at the same time eroding freedoms. This is about Miss Nomvete's comments. Let's take a look at those. I'm just gonna quote from the Yahoo article, read them up here, and you can read the article in full if you want. So Sophia Nomvete says the following stuff. She says, our character in the upcoming Lord of the Rings series, and it's not the Lord of the Rings series, even though they're calling that, Lord of the Rings is a specific book, okay? Our character is the face of a necessary redress of balance within the entertainment industry. Then she says that will guarantee accessibility for generations to come. Then she says, we're addressing the balance within the film and television industry, of course, and this franchise, and I hope lots of franchises moving forward. This is not a franchise. This is the work of J.R.R. Tolkien. The Tolkien's Legendarium is the work of J.R.R. Tolkien. It's not a whole franchise where multiple people contribute into, okay? I know I'm quibbling on that one. It's their time, and it's so important. I hope many people will see this fantasy and be able to relate to it. No one should be able to relate to fantasy. It's fantasy, not reality, okay? You should be able to seek an escape from what you relate to, reality, in fantasy, which is fiction, okay? This is a reflection of the world we live in, and there are many, and we look different, and we embrace and discover and peel back and learn, educate, and be educated. Here's a clue, okay? It's Lord of the Rings is not a reflection of the world we live in now. It's a reflection of a fictionalization of a time about either 6,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago, depending on which timeline you're going with Tolkien's version of it, okay? In northwestern Europe, in a part of the continent that was, by the way, in some parts of the Legendarium, some parts of the continent were sunk in further northwest of Europe. And the Germanic peoples that lived there at the time, in this fictional setting, okay? It's not about the reflection of the world we live in today. Mrs. Nomvete thinks that inserting people of color or of other ethnic origin into a fundamentally Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, Scandinavian type of work, not for purpose of letting the best actor take the role, as I talked about, but to change the nature of the Legendarium is a good thing. She also fails, and this is critical, this is very critical right here, okay? She also fails to understand that following this agenda is a deliberate effort by the cultural Marxists to devalue the cultural institutions of the ethnicities from which the people of color or minority come from. Okay? So by doing this, the Marxists, when they diversify things like Lord of the Rings in our, say, Western culture, they're not actually increasing diversity. The people they put into these roles, like her, they're basically telling her the roles of her, the stories from her native ancestral cultures are inferior. So we can't do those. We have to actually subvert and take over the ones in these other countries because yours are inferior to theirs. So who's the racist there in that case? None of us are saying that the stories from many other countries are inferior. Most of us who love fantasy love things like Dragon Ball Z or Naruto, which both have heavily influenced from Journey to the West and Chinese culture, or many other similar types of things. Whether you call monster movies, kaiju films, which are based on Japanese monsters, and so on. I'm not going to go crazy. Neil Gaiman's American Gods books, from deities from all over the world, So, you see, okay, and this is another critical point. You don't increase diversity by taking the same 3 gallons of soup that's in the pot that you make and dividing it into more soup bowls. Okay? That just gives everyone, all the people add in, less stuff. Okay? You increase diversity by adding more material, especially of a differing type, to the soup. So if your soup had beef in it and you want to feed 10 more people, you may increase the type of people you got by adding 10 more people, but they're going to get less soup, okay? And it'll be less satisfying. But if you add, I don't know, another pound of beef in there, everyone gets more soup. And if you want to diversify the type, well, you add some chicken or some shrimp or whatever you want to add in there. The point I'm getting at is you don't increase diversity by taking an existing thing and breaking into smaller chunks or changing one thing for the other. Diversity means more, not less or equal, like an equal amount of. So, Miss Nomvete, what's wrong with the legends from your own ancestral cultures? Storytelling plays a vital role in the Iranian culture, for example, the different ethnic groups and whatnot that are over there. And I know this little bit I know from Iranian lore. I had a friend in high school who was half Persian, half something tribal over there. I don't remember. He was his parents or grandparents. I think his parents came over from Iran, obviously, when the revolution happened, and I think his grandparents, and I think his parents were little kids or something like that. I don't remember all the details. I just know the dude was my age when we went to high school in the late 1980s. Okay. So maybe his parents were teens and they had, or something. I don't know. I don't know all the details. But point I'm getting is this: some of the stories I learned are about of Arash the Archer, who in the oldest lore was guided by a spirit, but when Islamification occurred, it became an angel. But Arash the Archer was guided by an angel to craft a special bow and shot an arrow over 2,000 miles because in order to set the border between Tehran and Iran, which led to a peace occurring between the two nations and tribes or whatever. And he became he became a hero to both. I think on the Iranian side, he died in the process. On the Turanian side, he was lived an honorable life or something like that. But that's one guy. How about Ghora Farid from the Epic of Kings, which is written around, 1,000 AD, 1,100 AD, somewhere in there. She was a woman who fought as a champion, a soldier, basically, against the invading Turanians, and she's a cultural icon to Iranian women. What's wrong with them? Why can't you? I'm not saying you can't play a character in Lord of the Ring in Tolkien's Legendarium in some fashion, Miss Nomvete. But I'm saying, why do you seek to change what's in your new native country? Why can't you bring that lore from your home country and add it to the pool so we can all enjoy it? Okay, that's the point here. But see, the reason you can't do that is because the cultural Marxists, have basically said that your Iranian and South African ancestors, their culture and stories, their tales, their fables, their myths, they're inferior. You have to supplant and replace British stuff, for example. Now, but the only thing I know about South African folklore comes from an Iron Maiden like band. They're called Skinflint. I'll try to remember to put a link to some of their songs down below because they're pretty good. But the lore does exist from the tribes and peoples down there. I'd like to know more about it. So, Miss Nomvete, why are you ashamed of your own ancestry? I'm not of mine. I'm not ashamed of yours or of others. Me and many others who enjoy fantasy, folklore, literature, and related things want to hear more from not only of our own people's stories, but every people's stories. Add it all in. We want to hear more. We are not afraid of it. Why don't you want to hear more, Mrs. Nomvete? Why are you afraid? Comment down below if you have any questions for me or about this video. Please share your thoughts. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.